Last week I put out an update for one of my preset bundles. It's the free bundle on my website based around the divided by 13 FTR. This is one of my favorite amp models in the Helix, and it's designed to be an all-in-one preset, a complete preset I like to call it. So this is something that is fully capable of being your entire rig. In this video, I just thought I'd go through the preset, share with you some tips I have on how to set up your own presets for use like this, and also just provide some context. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that take this preset and customize it a little bit to work for their own needs. So let's take a look at the preset. Obviously, this is the humbucker variant, and the way this is laid out loosely is that we've got two distinctly different gain stages. Got a Klon overdrive and then a toggle for amp parameters. We have a delay. We have an always-on spring reverb. This Footswitch 4 toggles between various settings of the delay. We have an optical tremolo, which would be typical of a Vox-style amp. Footswitch 6 is a phaser. Footswitch 7 takes care of everything having to do with compression, so it changes the gain, emphasis, and level parameters in the LA Studio comp. Just gives you a little bit more sustain. And then Footswitch 8, if you have it, is a solo boost. You might notice that this is, the core of the preset is on Footswitches 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I designed this with people who have the original HX Stomp in mind, so the most important Footswitches are on 1 through 5. If you have the XL or one of the larger Helix units, you also have Footswitches on 6, 7, and 8. So let's run through the preset, right? We have the divided by 13 amp model. I call it the blank slate. This is with no Footswitches engaged. Again, these presets are only in Footswitch mode. I just think you get a little bit more out of it than you would in Snapshot on the smaller units. I've talked about that plenty. So that's kind of our crunch rhythm tone. And of course we can back off the volume a little bit, get a slightly cleaner sound. So let's take a look at the amp model. It's the divided duo, divided by 13 FTR based amp model. It's kind of like a happy marriage between a Plexi, a Marshall Plexi, and an AC30 or so, which is one of my favorite amps. And I actually decided to go with the 1x12 Deluxe cab for this. It sounded good. I'm using an SM7 mic model at an angle to help tame some of the brightness. This is a very bright amp model. And this is one of the ways that you can kind of compensate with that. Check out my video on dialing in the amp parameters if you want to know a little bit more about that. So we have kind of our standard sound, like I said, the blank slate. And then as we hit Footswitch 2, this is going to bring a bunch of different parameters in the Helix. It's going to toggle some stuff here. So we're going to get much more overdriven sound. What I usually like to do when I create presets is I'll just dial in the amp to the point that it sounds good, EQ and everything. I'll take a screenshot of it, and then I'll dial in the amp again to a slightly more overdriven sound, take another screenshot, references the two images, and I'll set up the parameter adjustments here. You can see how many there are in this screen. Just to flip back and forth between the two different amp settings. It's like using snapshots, but you can stay in Footswitch mode, which is really good. So that's the two different amp tones that we have to choose from. We also have another gain stage here with a Klon model, the Centaur or the Minotaur. And what I've done is I've changed some parameters here. So you'll notice, of course, Footswitch 1 engages the Klon. A little bit more distortion, a nice mid boost, slight level increase because if you're using more overdrive, of course, the band's probably going to be playing a little bit louder too. So that brings in the Klon. It also changes some parameters within the amp block to make the amp block work a little bit better. I do that all the time. So the presence, the master volume, compensating for the volume difference, and the cut control are all changing. You might also notice here that Footswitch 2 is changing parameters in the Minotaur. So again, the blank slate of the preset. Then I'm going to hit Footswitch 2. It's a slightly more overdriven sound. You have an alternate overdrive with the Klon a little bit brighter. And then you can combine these. And this is where I'm using parameter adjustments from Footswitch 2, which is primarily controlling the amp model, to affect the Klon. It's lowering the gain and boosting the level a lot. So we're getting mostly overdrive from the amp, but the Klon is providing a little bit of compression in the front, which helps to get you like a really smooth, sustaining lead tone. So there's our 4 various overdrive sounds: the blank slate with the Klon, with the amp overdrive, and then the Klon and the amp overdrive together. We have a stereo delay. So here it's mono, mono, amp blocks mono. The tremolo is still mono. Then we have a stereo spring reverb. I'll talk about that in a second. A stereo delay, and of course a stereo compressor, so it doesn't sum back down to mono. This is the Elephant Man model, one of my favorites, which is based on the Electro Harmonix Memory Man. Just a little bit of chorus on the repeats. And this is kind of set up just generically to be, you know, a very usable solo tone, or to fill in the background and rhythm parts to make them sound a little bit bigger. So there's our delay. We also have a spring reverb. As I said before, it toggles between different parameters here. So with the foot switch off, we just have just a kind of generic spring reverb sound that's cool to leave always on. It's not going to really get in the way of anything. If you want more reverb, it's bringing up the dwell. It's bringing up the spring count for slightly denser sound. I believe it's bringing down the high cut, and it's upping the mix a little bit too. So that's our slightly wetter spring effect. We have the optical tremolo, which is after the cabinet, before the reverb. This is something you might want to experiment with switching around, but there's not enough DSP to have a stereo tremolo, so you would lose that. You would lose the stereo reverb effect if you switched the order of these. Foot switch 6, we have just kind of a Eddie Van Halen style phaser sound. Foot switch 8 is a boost, as I mentioned earlier. It actually does, it moves the microphone closer to the cabinet and introduces a slight low cut, in addition to actually boosting the level here. And then 7, just with the compressor, adds in a little bit more sustain. So this preset's free. You can, you're welcome to download it from my website, tweak it as you feel you need to, and if you feel like picking up more presets, I have a bunch of different bundles. You can read a little bit more about it. Right now I'm working on updating everything to be compatible with Helix 3.50, make use of the new stock cabs, the new ambience block, and just generally updating everything here. One of the things I did recently was I took all of my dual amp presets. These are presets that literally use 2 amp models. Since the new cab design uses much less DSP, I was able to add in more effects, an additional gain stage, and so these presets are much more capable now. So this one would be a combination of a matchless and a deluxe. Of course, it's in stereo. These are kind of designed with the person in mind who has a stereo board they're feeding into the front of the Helix, the HX Stomp, and they're using the HX Stomp primarily for amp simulation. But pretty much all my presets here are meant to be used direct. So you can check out the complete preset library, which, as I said, the complete preset is one that's designed for the HX Stomp to be your entire rig. They're very dense presets. Here's the Blues Junior one, along with a custom IR bundle I put together of my Mesa Boogie. Bunch of other presets here. Yeah, one on the Vent 2, one with the new PV Vitrol, and of course a single coil version. So thanks for watching the video. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments, like, subscribe, all that stuff. I have, I think, close to 80 Helix tutorials on this channel that you might find helpful. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.